Well, it's 2 o'clock now, so we're all ready to get started. Thank you all for joining us for our SolSmart 101 webinar. We're excited to bring you a ton of information about our program and introduce some of the aspects, give a little bit of introductory information about what we do and the organizations we work with and how we can assist communities. We have 4 great individuals here, 3 great individuals joining me. That's not a very humble way of introducing myself, I suppose. But anyways, we're happy to be here to help you with any issues you may have with SolSmart or your interest in SolSmart. And we're all going to be tackling different aspects of the program, including a few case studies on previous communities and their experience, as well as the TA review process and the DPA review process. So thank you for taking time out of your day to watch this webinar and join us, and we hope you will find this to be informative. So I will lead us off with a little bit of background information, and then hand it over to my colleague Teresa Perry. This is just an acknowledgement, essentially noting that this is prepared as an account of work sponsored by an agency of the United States government, but the United States government or no agency thereof or any employees are giving any legal liability or responsibility for any of the information that are on here. So with that in mind, I will throw this over to my colleague Teresa Perry, and she'll go into a little bit of the background information on the program and get us started.
Excellent. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Danny. We are going to talk today about a lot of the program. One of the first things I would love to know is who's in our audience. And so if we could do just a short quiz, and that quiz is going to be just asking you what is your whether you're a city or a county, what kind of community you have. So that's our very first question. That should show up on your screen right now, and we'll just wait a minute while you click city, county, or other. While we're waiting, though, I am excited to have so many people join us today. Thank you for coming along. We'll have a couple of polls throughout the presentation just to get a feel for where folks are in the SolSmart journey, as we like to call it.
And it looks like we've got about 60% of the individuals attending have voted, and it looks like we're at about 60% of the individuals joining are from city, 9% a county, and 32% from somewhere outside of those two.
Not a city or a county, maybe a regional organization. We can speak to that later. So it really is a Super Tuesday. Excellent. Everybody's voting. All righty. So I am working with the SolSmart program on the technical assistance side. So very excited about that. The Solar Foundation heads up the technical assistance program for SolSmart. We work in conjunction with the International City and Counties Management Association. So both programs together work very hard on this. You'll see later that we have a ton of partners too. So you'll see some of our speakers have come from a variety of places. So what is SolSmart? It is a national designation and technical assistance program. Every time I see this sentence, I think, oh, it should be the other way around. It's technical assistance and designation, but sometimes the designation comes first because we don't know what to give technical assistance on. It's both things, though, and it's a really great program that allows communities to look at what designation they want to pursue, what's relevant to them, what helps them get to where they want to be with respect to solar. And it provides the technical assistance communities need in order to get there. So once you get a SolSmart designation, there's 2 major things that happen. One, this designation recognizes the communities that's taken these steps to looking at local barriers to solar energy, and then demonstrates to solar developers that the community is open for solar business. If you look at that bottom line, targeted, no-cost technical assistance is important. It's no cost to the communities using the technical assistance And this really helps a lot of our communities that might be short on bandwidth but want to get involved in solar. So SolSmart Actions, there's a lot of things that happen, but why would you want to participate? One thing is to increase transparency both to your citizens and to your solar developers who might be coming to the area as you're growing your solar market in your area. So you're increasing your transparency through putting your permitting checklist online, creating a solar landing page, just so folks know what's happening in your community. You're increasing understanding both to your community, but also to the staff that are working on your team. A lot of people don't know the basics of what a solar permit should be, what it should include. And so increasing that understanding for your community teams, your community staff that are working on this is another thing that happens. And you reduce barriers. You decrease your permit turnaround time, which ultimately helps the developers come into your community. It also decreases your frustration of your citizens trying to get permits. And you also just make sure your codes are solar friendly through a variety of steps that you can take. So there's a lot of things that the SolSmart practices that we put in place help you do to get solar ready. All righty, taking a look at core competencies within our criteria and designation. We have 95 unique credits in 8 different categories. Now, I had somebody one time see this 95 unique credits and say, oh my gosh, I have to do 95 things. And you don't. You get to pick and choose between these 95 credits, which ones, again, suit your community, which is great. Each credit has a corresponding point value, 5 to 20 points, and you have to get a certain number of points. You have to do a certain number of things, but you make your own program, or you, along with the help from our technical assistance providers, create a program that suits your community and what it is you're trying to go for. The foundational categories that you have to get credits in are permitting and then planning, zoning, and development. Those are foundational, and then we have these special focus categories that you really get to choose from: inspection, construction codes, solar rights, utility engagement, community engagement, market development, and finance. So again, depending on what your focus is, what your needs are for your community, you can choose which ones are going to address where you want to go. All right, key accomplishments. I'd love to just show you where we are. We, as of, I think yesterday, I pulled this data, we are at 365 designees, which is great. Our target was 300. We upped that to 400 because it seemed like the next logical number, but always looking for more communities. The numbers on the left are, we have 3 different levels: gold, silver, bronze. Those are the numbers of each community. And as I look at these numbers fairly frequently, I'll see that, one category number might go down. The first time I saw that, I thought, why is bronze going down? And it's because people, once they get bronze, don't stop. They just keep going. I spent some time yesterday at the, or earlier this week at the National Association for Counties legislative conference, and there were a couple folks there. They're so excited. We're going for gold. We're almost there. So I think once you get bitten by the bug, you just want to keep going and getting more points. We do have designees in 41 states, plus the District of Columbia, representing about 83 million people. So that's 1 in 4 in the United States currently in a designated community. That means 3 in 4 are not. So still plenty of room for growth there. Also, it's worth noting that 7 out of 10 of the most populous cities in this country are in our program, which means that there's a lot of communities that are much more sparsely populated that aren't in this number at all. We do have a regional organization pathway. We currently have 3 designated regional organizations. We've created some awards, and you can see our satisfaction surveys, both for technical assistance and advisor programs, are usually pretty high. People like to work with our teams because they really do a great job. Alrighty, I wanted to make sure to point out our amazing partners. On the Technical Assistance Program, you can see we're joined by a whole host of folks there with a lot of expertise. And this is important, I think, in just recognizing that whatever the question is that you have, we've probably got an expert somewhere in this mix that can help you fix that. So there's a lot going on with the Technical Assistance Program. Notice that the Technical Assistance and the Designation Program are two separate things. That means that the person that's checking the submission of the application once it's completely done is different than the person that gave you the technical assistance, giving some accountability to the program. So it's really a great thing to have the two different teams. We, again, do work very closely together, though. We created a sample process overview, which there was no way to actually create this that says this is definitely what happened. So just be aware that things might not happen in this order. They might happen concurrently, but there are a few things that are definitely going to occur at some point in your process. So once you have some interest, take a look at the application. We'll start that today and review the program, make sure you're good to go. And the first thing that's going to happen is that you'll write a solar statement. It's a written commitment by your community on letterhead, and you have to get a signature of a city official for this. What's important and valuable to you as a community for this is that this is the point where you're getting buy-in from the leadership within your community. So we see this as an incredibly valuable step. It's a small step, but it's very valuable. The next few things I have shown here are technical assistance, but there's a lot of things, again, they can happen concurrently. You can be assigned a TA provider, technical assistance provider. This person will help walk you through the steps through technical assistance. Not everybody wants a technical assistance provider, but most people do, and so you'll have one assigned to you. You'll determine your jurisdiction, whether you're standard or modified pathway. You'll get a consultation call, and a work plan will be developed for your community. You'll determine which level of designation you're going to go for. You can go straight for gold if you want, or you can go for bronze and then slowly pick away at the other designation levels. You'll always have a zoning review done, and then you'll select which criteria you pursue and go after them. So all of that is happening in technical assistance with your provider and within your teams. Then you have the designation pathway. You're going to submit your application with all the criteria. It's going to be reviewed. It's, again, conducted by a different team. Hopefully everything's great, in which case you'll go straight to receiving your designation. If there's a couple issues, you might have to go through and do a little tinkering with things and resubmit, but that designation team will make sure you get to the final point. That's what I have, Danny.
All right, thank you, Teresa. That was very informative. So we're going to pass it off now to our colleague from the National League of Cities, Nick, and he's going to take over on some aspects of the technical assistance process.
Great. Thanks, Danny. Thanks, Teresa. As Danny said, my name is Nick Haza, and I'm with the National League of Cities, program manager that works on providing technical assistance to local governments through a couple of grant-funded programs. Some of what we're about to see is a little bit redundant from the intro, but it's important information, and I just wanted to make sure that it's clear to everyone what the technical assistance part of SolSmart looks like. Our technical assistance team is made up of 9 organizations led by the Solar Foundation, as Teresa said, and several of these organizations have worked on previous Department of Energy solar programs, and basically all of them have years of experience providing local governments with the solutions and expertise that they need to remove solar barriers and implement best practices. We have team members that have expertise with engineering and system design, the ability to conduct feasibility analysis, and quite a few that have policy and regulatory expertise as well. There are 3 different designation pathways for SolSmart. The first is the standard pathway. This is the most common pathway that communities use when they proceed through the program and achieve designation. The second is our modified pathway, which we also call the county's pathway. And this is for communities that don't control permitting, planning and zoning, and/or inspection process within their jurisdiction. Once again, modified is for those communities that don't control one or more of permitting, planning and zoning, and/or inspection. Sometimes we see a local government, a city, town, or village may forego those responsibilities and let a county do it just because of economies of scale and efficiency. And then our final pathway is the regional organization pathway. And this is really for multi-jurisdictional organizations like regional organizations, council of governments, and regional planning commissions. And this pathway is really not only to designate the regional organization, but the goal is by designating them, there are going to be several communities within that larger region that also achieve SolSmart designation. So we see standardization and best practices implemented across a wider geographic area. SolSmart is a tiered designation structure. For each one of those pathways, our criteria has 3 levels of designation: bronze, silver, and gold. For each one of those levels of designation, we have a points threshold that must be met and prerequisites that need to be completed in order to achieve any of those levels of designation. This is just kind of a few images of what our designation criteria may look like. We kind of refer to it both as an application and/or scorecard. It's really meant to kind of baseline where a community currently is in terms of their solar policy and solar processes. And then also it really helps us identify our technical assistance pathway to achieve designation. As mentioned before, there's 95 unique credits, 8 different categories. We already know and saw what those 8 different categories are. The credits range from 0 points for certain prerequisites to 5, 10, and 20 points, depending on the level of complexity of the credit and the level of impact as well. Again, as mentioned, points are verified by the designation side. So technical assistance will help a community up until a certain point. And then once that community is ready and puts together a submission package, that goes to the review team and they complete their review. This is a list of all the credits for the standard pathway. I'm not going to read or go through all of them, but I did want to call attention to the first 3, which are the ones required for bronze level designation. The solar statement, like we said, that really indicates a city's commitment to working with our team to achieve SolSmart designation. That is generally one of the first things that we like to see from a local government to indicate their interest. And then the second one is the P1 online checklist. That is our bronze permitting prerequisite. That is so we clearly have information about the permitting process that's transparent, easily accessible for a home, a business, a solar installer to be able to see what does that permitting process look like. And I actually misspoke. It's not the first 3 bullets. It's the first 2 and then the PZD-1A. That's the zoning review that Teresa was talking about earlier. And that review is comprised of a memo that is then presented to a local government, and it's purely an informational memo. It identifies barriers to solar energy in your current zoning ordinance or land use ordinance, and then also highlights any gaps to solar as well. If you have an ordinance that is silent on solar, there's just nothing in it about solar, there really aren't any barriers, but there's certainly gaps that could be plugged to improve that zoning ordinance. So those are our big 3 prereqs for bronze level, the PR1 solar statement, the P1 permitting checklist, and the PZD-1A zoning review. Now we're going to dig into a couple of different resources that are available to communities interested in SolSmart. We'll actually go through some slides, and then I'll take you to a little bit of a mini live demo on the website to show you exactly where those are. The first I wanted to call out is the program guide. This is specific to the standard pathway, but this is probably our most detailed resource. It includes the credits and all the credit language. It includes what recommended verification documentation should be used, if it's a link, if it's a memo, if it's some other type of document, and generally it'll also include what should be within that document as well. And then we also have additional resources and links to examples. Some of them are best practice guides put out by various organizations, including some that participate on the SolSmart team. Others are examples that directly take you to what another community has done. We know that as local government staff, a lot of folks are very busy, and we don't really want you to create something new. We can borrow ideas. There's no need to recreate the wheel here. We're really big at utilizing templates as well for the work that we do. Digging in a little bit more about technical assistance, as mentioned earlier, technical assistance is available to all and any local government across the country, and it is at no cost to the community. The one thing we do ask, obviously, is for your support and commitment to work with us, and we do that, again, in the form of the solar statement. It does take some staff time to work with SolSmart. We can't necessarily go onto your website and create a new permitting checklist. That's something that someone within the local government will have to do. But as we'll see, we definitely have templates and resources that you can utilize to create that permitting template as well. Our TA delivery really takes various forms. We have a great website that's just loaded with all sorts of detail on there. We'll disclose information via kind of one-on-one consultations, whether that's phone calls or emails. We may hold conference calls for one community to connect with another or to connect with a team of experts. We generally hold webinars, about one a month, on various topics. Some of them are directly related to permitting credits for SolSmart. And we can do in-person site visits and technical workshops. And in lieu of those, sometimes we will be able to do virtual trainings as well. As I said, we're big fans of templates here, so we don't have to recreate the wheel. On the left is a zoning template that we use. It really, again, highlights what are the barriers in the code, what are the gaps. We'll highlight specific kind of comments that the reviewer calls out, and then provide example language as well. So if we say, well, you're missing a definition for solar energy in your code, we'll highlight that, we'll call it out, but then we'll also provide you with examples from other codes as well. The image on the right is a template permitting checklist that's been created and refined over the last couple of years for SolSmart. It really contains kind of the basic information that we're looking for in a permitting checklist, and again, is a real nice, easy template to utilize to not have to spend a lot of time creating your own. A couple of the resources on the website, I've included the direct links here. One of them is for permitting. The other one is for a solar energy toolkit for local governments that many of the organizations on the team have worked on. We can see the various topics here. There's a lot of great resources, a lot of great detail there. So if you're interested in any of those topics, definitely take a look at that. And then, as I highlighted, we also have quite a few different webinars that we've done. The first two mentioned there, best practices in solar planning and zoning best practices for large-scale solar. Those both help achieve one of our planning and zoning credits. Very good resources. We had a fantastic group of experts that spoke on both of those, so I highly recommend checking them out. Another one of our prereq credits is PV inspection training, and you'll see that there. So check that one out possibly as well. And then there's a couple of other examples. So here's this kind of a slide that tries to summarize what our technical assistance objectives look like. We saw, we're looking to increase transparency increase understanding and reduce barriers. But at the end of the day, when you put in clear processes, when you have guidelines that are written, you're going to get from solar installers better submittals that really should take less time to review, less time to process, and that at the end of the day will save staff time and just make their lives easier as we're looking to increase deployment of solar energy. Briefly on the submission process and requirements, one of the first things after you've kind of checked out our website and looked at some of the details is to request a consultation call with SolSmart staff. We'll kind of talk through what your community's baseline is for solar, what you'd be looking to get out of the SolSmart process, and that generally helps us identify what pathway you would work on as well. Once we have that, we'll go through, start working on the prerequisite credits, the solar statement, permitting checklist, zoning review, and then identify other areas for technical assistance to achieve at least a minimum level of designation. And once we have the proper documentation and everything has been verified, we'll again put that into a submittal package, and then that goes over to the review team to hopefully look over those documents and confirm that a community is ready to be designated. So before we hand it off to Toya, we're going to take a real quick spin to the SolSmart website and just show you where some of these resources are. So SolSmart is www.solsmart.org. Again, great website, check it out. But I just wanted to call out two areas. The first is resources. And if you click on that, you'll be able to see that we highlight three big resources at the top in images. But then we have the Solar Energy Toolkit, the Simplified Permitting Guide, and View All Resources. I'm not going to dive into each one of those. The toolkit is the one that had those various categories. The permitting guide is obviously specific to basically how can you have an efficient accessory use solar permit process. And then if you click on all resources, you're actually able to view not only our resources based on the different categories that we have for the program, you can also just sort that by webinars. And you'll be able to see all the webinars that we've done in the last year, year and a half or so. Again, a lot of great content there. If you've explored the website, you're like, okay, this is something we'd very much be interested in, head on over to the Get Started tab, and you can hit Request a Consultation. That captures some very brief information about the community, your contact information. We then get sent an email. It actually comes directly to myself and Toya, who we'll hear from. We'll reach out to you and look to set up a consultation call and get the process started. So with that, hopefully you'll have a better idea of where to go and navigate on the website. I'm going to turn it over to Toya to continue the presentation.
All right, good afternoon, good morning, depending on what time zone you are. My name is Toya Barije, and I work at the Solar Foundation as a senior project manager. I work on both technical assistance and the designation sides of the SolSmart program. And for the purpose of this presentation, I'll just be wearing my designation hat, the reviewer hat. All right, so the designation side is led by ICMA. However, TSF, the Solar Foundation, the National Civic League, Cadmus Group, and Home Innovation all take part in the designation process of the program. The designation review team strives to evaluate all applications fairly. We work really hard to maintain the standard of the program as a highly valued, meaningful, and robust program. As the reviewers, we look at the application and pinpoint communities' accomplishments that should be publicized. We also provide recommendations on local policies that could be improved to increase solar deployment. So just to give you a brief overview of the review process, once the community submits their application, ICMA selects the primary reviewer and a quality control reviewer. These reviewers are given a 2-week time frame to complete the review and provide the results to the technical assistance provider and the community. During this time frame, the primary reviewer conducts an initial review of each credit that the community is claiming. The primary reviewer grants or denies these credits and provides explanations to back up their reasoning. So once the initial review is complete, the primary reviewer will notify the quality control reviewer. I know there's a lot of reviewing in here. And the QC reviewer validates the arguments that are made by the primary reviewer and provides feedback ensuring fairness and consistency. The QC and primary reviewers do not always agree they don't always agree on a credit or denial, approval or credit or denial of a credit. Sorry about that. So if that happens, if they can't come to a mutual understanding, they can check our credit interpretation notebook for clarity and exceptions, or they can request further guidance from the rest of the team. Now, once the primary reviewer reconciles the review, the applicant's results are finalized and presented to the community. So as a good tool to use to ensure that you're sending in information that is valid and within the requirements of the criteria, if you go on the website and you go to submit application, there is a section underneath the application that's termed the verification appendix. And really that's a good place to look at. It really helps you understand the relevance of the information that we're requesting from you. We're also happy to answer any questions if you're unclear on whether the information you're submitting is sufficient. So on this slide, I'll briefly go over some of the common mistakes that are made. One is lack of clarity in the information that you're submitting or not submitting any information at all. A community may claim points but forget to submit supporting evidence. This will result in a rejection of credits. Another mistake that we tend to see is if a criteria action is actually asking for something to be submitted within a certain timeline. So for instance, I-1, if the inspection training takes place, it took place 7 years ago and you submit that and it clearly says that we're asking for a 5-year time period, then that will be rejected. So this is a summary of the designation. If a community receives designation after the reviewer has completed the steps, they will actually get an email from ICMA congratulating them on their designation, as well as next steps. As part of that email, communities get a prerequisite summary that essentially tells you what level you qualify for based on the prerequisites you've completed. So as you can see with this, Atlanta has completed the bronze requirements. So you can see in the validation status, it's clearly written as done, and they just have the I-1 requirement, which is incomplete. So a community can achieve bronze designation and then slowly work its way up to silver designation, and then following that, they can work on gold designation. So the second output is the credit summary, and this document gives you an explanation of why we awarded certain points and rejected others. This document will give you recommendations on how you can resolve any credit issues. So as you can see under the credit summary, in the middle column, it says either credit awarded or not awarded, and right next to that, there's an explanation of why it was awarded or not awarded, so you're able to go back and resolve those issues. So as you look at the recommendations, you'll get a clear understanding of why the credits were declined, and you can seek help from your technical assistance provider to resolve those issues. So all hope is not lost. If you do not receive designation on your first try, you can resubmit your application, and once that's resolved, you can work with your technical assistance provider to help you generate a resubmission cover sheet. Once that's sent in, it's literally the same process as the first submission that you submitted. So once you've achieved designation, we will send you a SolSmart plaque symbolizing your designation level and your commitment to the program. Some communities post their SolSmart success on social media, others on TV channels, and some in their local newspapers. Communities can also host events to celebrate their designation. So this is a huge success for you. Please feel free to promote it. We also give you guidelines on how to promote it on social media and other media channels. And now I'll give it to Danny, and he will present some case studies for us.
All right, thank you very much, Joya. So as mentioned, I'm Danny Falk, and I'll be presenting two specific case studies that we worked on. Actually, both Nick and Toya worked with these communities, so they have a little bit of first-hand experience. The first case study is with West Palm Beach, and there you can see the plaque that we award everyone for designation. And as you can tell, West Palm Beach received gold designation, which is our highest level of designation at this point. So West Palm Beach was the first city in the state of Florida to offer a one-day permitting turnaround by setting up an expedited one-day solar permitting process for PV systems of 10 kilowatts or less. The city's also been able to add 665 kilowatts of solar energy since mid-2018, which is obviously a substantial amount of growth, and you can see that it's had a growth of 50% within a year. In terms of the path that West Palm Beach was able to take, they received their gold designation in 2018. Our program worked to ensure the businesses were approved for solar PVs more quicker than before. We also provided assistance in solar and historic and special use districts. We also made sure that they were able to provide PACE financing for future solar energy projects. And they also earned special awards for their work within two of our criteria categories, which were permitting and inspection criteria. And another example of a community we worked with, going from one end of the map to the other, so to speak, was Anchorage, Alaska. Anchorage, for a little bit of background, has seen a 1,000% increase in solar systems installed since 2015. They also had what I believe, at least from the information I was seeing, was the largest rooftop solar array in Alaska, which is 77 kilowatts, which was expected to save over $20,000 in electricity rates and had what we call a payback period of less than 8 years. The city also adopted its first climate action plan in summer of 2019, and that's relevant to us because we were included within the city's climate action plan or designation within SolSmart. They received their bronze designation in 2019. They were also the first community, SolSmart community designated within the state of Alaska. Some of the things that they did in order to get designated were creating an online permitting checklist, which increased transparency for community members and solar installers. They also reviewed local zoning codes and identified any restrictions that intentionally or unintentionally prohibit solar PV development. And like West Palm Beach, they also earned a special award for their work, specifically in the criteria category of inspection. So these are just two specific examples of communities we've worked with and that managed to get designated throughout our program. And we hope that if there's any communities listening to this that might be interested, we hope that you'd be interested in going down the same or similar path to Anchorage and West Palm Beach. So with that, I'm going to open this up for any questions that anyone might have for the audience. So we're going to take a moment for anyone to send in any questions that they have. We'll give everyone, say, a minute to be able to provide any questions they can think of on any of the topics. The four of us are still here to help you with anything that they have a question on, and we'll do our best to answer any questions you have. It's also worth mentioning that we will be sending out this recording in the next couple of days. So if there's anyone who you think might be interested in this program, or you're just interested in taking a second look at it, we will be sending out a copy of this. And it also will be available on our YouTube channel, which is Go SolSmart. So if you're ever looking in the future to take another look at this, or you saw something within this presentation that you want to go back and get more information on, feel free to either check this out again or ask us a question in the next few minutes.
All right, so we are actually just going to jump into our Q&A session. There is a question about how long SolSmart has been in existence, and this is one I can answer. The program actually launched in April of 2016. So we've been running since then, and our initial goal was to get to about 300 designees by October 2020. We exceeded that goal, and I'm very proud to say that by October last year, we were at 300 designees. So we're trying to get to that 400 mark, and it's pretty clear that we're able to achieve that. Now, the next question was, is the best way to start is a self-test for the application. So I'll direct this one to Nick, if you can answer that question.
So I think self-test, probably the better way I'd classify it is the baseline assessment, using our scorecard, quote application to basically see where your community currently is at in terms of the policy and processes. And then that'll kind of indicate how close you are to this bronze designation, and then also you'd be able to kind of choose your own adventure and see what additional credits you would like to work on and achieve to reach that designation. The easiest place to go for that would be on the website. Under that Get Started tab, I believe it's the third item down. That's where you can see the program guide, and it has additional information about the specific criteria. You can download a PDF from there and basically use that resource if you wanted to truly do this as kind of a self-test. I think it would be easier actually if you just go and schedule a consultation call, because usually we have someone on our team that will conduct that baseline for the local government first, walk them through what we uncovered, and then that kind of gives you a head start on what else needs to be done.
Excellent. And then also, this is just a tip for folks that are considering SolSmart that have not, if you have permitting departments that have not received training, or planning and zoning departments that have not received solar training, we have resources online that you can actually watch the webinars and receive credit for that will count towards your designation. So it's definitely a good way to utilize the information online. And this actually ties into another question that we received. A person said, we do not know anything about solar. Are there resources for a beginner? Yes, they are. There are a lot of resources. If you go onto our website and go to the resources page, you're able to find a good assortment of information there that will help you make some decisions towards solar deployment or solar planning in your community. So another question that we got was, what is the staff time commitment to get designation? And Nick, would you like to answer that as well?
Sure thing. This really kind of depends on the community, and realizing that there's various sizes of communities out there that have all different sorts of personnel. For smaller local governments, where we may have kind of one point of contact and they can easily work across various departments, the time might be a little bit more, but the ease of completing credits may also be a little bit easier just because there's a little bit less bureaucracy to work through. For larger communities, larger cities especially, that have a lot of different departments, it may be tough to sometimes get a hold of folks in some key departments that we need to work with. And so that just generally takes a little bit more time. But the way I like to frame it is we don't require any set amount of time and effort from local government staff. We're really here to meet you where you're at and kind of fit within your needs for the program. If it's something that we really want to work towards gung-ho for, the first 3 or 4 weeks, we can do that. If it needs to be tabled for, a month because something else has come up, we can obviously do that as well. But there will be at least a little bit of effort in terms of coordinating amongst various departments. There's quite a few of our credits that require updates being made to a community's website, just so that that information is transparent and available. So hopefully that wouldn't be that heavy of a burden or lift. And then, it does depend on certain other credits. If you want to achieve gold designation and you need to make a zoning ordinance update, that may take a little bit more political capital, depending on how detailed your process is for that zoning ordinance update. That might be a 2 to 4 month lead time potentially, where you have to have open meetings as well. But ideally, you look at the SolSmart team and kind of see us as consultants and extra help at no cost for you to achieve your solar goals.
Fantastic. We just received another question. What is the best way to get elected officials on board with this idea? So I can answer this question, and if anyone else would like to pitch in, that would be great. So essentially, we have staff here that is able to provide presentations. We can actually do a conference call with those individuals. We're happy to, if it's close enough, we could also make a trip there and make a presentation in person. But we have tools online that also really explain what the program is, how it's benefited a lot of communities across the country. And also what is really interesting is we have communities that are out there that are able to serve as peer mentors. So if you would like a recommendation or a referral from another community, we can definitely request that from that community, and they can be able to talk to you about their experience with the program and how it's worked out for them. All right. So we do have one more question, and I think Nick sort of responded to this, but it says, how long does it take a typical community from start to finish to get designation?
So again, this one kind of depends on, the staff time that they can commit and exactly how many credits they need to achieve. Some communities are nearly there, and maybe we just need to do a zoning review, have a solar statement signed, and complete one other credit. In that instance, we can work with a community and they can achieve designation within 3 to 4 weeks. Other times, if your community's kind of newer to solar, if you will, it may be a slightly longer process. But we are here to work with you again, kind of depending on what comes up for your workload. And if it's something that you really want to work on and achieve quickly, we can do that. If we do need a little bit longer timeline, we can do that as well. But it really depends because each individual community has their own unique characteristics that we work within.
Excellent. So I'll turn it back to you, Danny. I think that concludes our Q&A session.
Yes, I believe that that should hopefully that answered everyone's questions. Again, if you're interested in seeing this webinar again, we'll be sending it out to everyone within the next couple of days, and it'll also be on our Go SolSmart YouTube channel, along with several of our other webinars. So if you're interested in checking out any of our previous work with webinars, they should be all available there for everyone to take a look at if anyone's interested. So with that in mind, thank you to everyone who was able to attend. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about SolSmart. And thank you again for your time, and we're happy to have provided you with some SolSmart information that we hope you found helpful.